Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to You've Championed Yourself. Who are you? I'm Chris Ferguson, your host. It has always been a dream of mine to showcase ordinary people doing extraordinary things in life for themselves and for others. Those who have taken their dreams and their ideas and then turned it into their reality. As they reach beyond their personal struggles, their personal pains, their traumas, whatever they were going through, where so many people give up, these people don't lose hope. There are the few that can walk through their obstacles and challenges. They don't know where it's going to take them. They just trust enough not to give up, to do the follow through in their personal life, their career, and in their relationships. This is what I call a champion in life. And today I have an amazing guest. His name's Brett Hill. And we were talking beforehand of the dichotomies of the woo-woo world versus the analytical world. So let's bring Brett in. Hi, Brett.
Hello there.
How are you?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm awesome. It's a full moon and the energy has just gone absolutely ape crap. And so we're just trying to go with the flow. So technology glips. It's like, okay, what else can we do? I want to thank you and honor you for coming on my podcast today. Sure, but I'd like to talk, if you wouldn't mind, about your backstory, about what you did and how it transitioned your journey.
Yeah, sure. I spent a large part of my career in technology because I kind of grew up as technology evolved from, hey, this is a cool idea. We can do ones and zeros in a computer to modern technology and cell phones. And I grew up through the whole evolution of that and saw the first iterations of search engines and Google and Facebook and Twitter and the entire, what they call enterprise cloud, they call it. And that's like, Amazon cloud and Microsoft Azure cloud. Mm-hmm. And I became an expert, really a deep dive expert in technology in terms of how do the bits actually get across the wire so that you and I can do what we're doing right this minute. And I became, I was actually a technical evangelist, they used to call them, they don't call them that anymore, for Microsoft. And so I would travel around the world talking about Microsoft server technology and the launch of their cloud services. I was involved with that as well. And then in the whole process, the whole time during this, I was actually also involved in meditation and mindfulness. I was a meditation teacher, and I established a meditation center in Dallas when I was down there and taught meditation and, kind of more spiritual awareness. Mm-hmm. And that stayed with me, of course, the whole time. It's not something you just check at the door. Just because you have a tech job doesn't mean you leave your spirit at home, right? And so, although that wasn't face forward so much in my work, clearly, those lines are getting a lot more blurred these days. And eventually I decided that it was the very best parts of me are the parts that kind of what I call come online, to use a tech term, whenever I'm interacting with people and I'm working with people one-on-one or one-on-many. I'm teaching about mindfulness and communications, or teaching coaches how to be better coaches, or intuition. I teach intuition as well. And when I'm doing that, I feel like I'm really me. You know what I mean? I feel like that's really what I was built to do. And it's so much better than the me that is built to do ones and zeros on the internet.
Well, I have to tell you, I love the way you're describing this. I love it because it is a dichotomy, and to be so analytical about the zeros and the ones, and you had to pay attention to the zeros and ones and what was going to add up. And in intuition, they tell you just the opposite. Go with the flow, go within, see how you feel about this. What's coming up for you?
Yeah, well, there's that, but there is also a refinement of those senses. So it's not just like whatever happens is okay. I mean, it's okay, but it doesn't mean that everything that you're feeling inside is intuitive. And so learning to sort that out, like what's just what I call a somatic memory. I can tell you a quick story. One way I learned about this, I was doing a walk like really early in the morning, like 1 a.m. in Boulder where I lived. And it was blizzarding. I used to go out in extreme weather because it was fun. And so blizzarding, I'm on these railroad tracks and I'm walking along these railroad tracks in this giant blizzard. I was comfy as I could be because I had giant, snow gear on, right? So I'm walking along and it's 1 o'clock in the morning and I'm on this railroad track, kind of doing my little balance thing, having some fun. And all of a sudden, out of the middle of nowhere, I felt like I wanted some ice cream. Not just any ice cream, but like Dairy Queen, soft serve, and I'm going, what? But it was like this, it literally just kind of came out of nowhere and really surprised me. And I thought, well, is this my body telling me this is what I want? Intuitively you might go, well, this is my body speaking. But then after I hung out with that feeling for a while, I had a memory of when I was younger and I used to walk on the railroad tracks at my granddad's place out in the middle of rural Oklahoma. And after I walked about 2 miles, it was really hot, and there used to be a little soft serve Dairy Queen place there. And so what was happening wasn't an intuition, it was just a sense memory that walking on the railroad tracks means soft serve ice cream is imminent, and my body just got ready for
well,
it.
as a child, that's what it meant. I get it, and I agree. Not everything's intuitive. Not everything is a vision. Not everything is a sign. However, in my world, they tell you when you go through the police academy that you have to listen to your gut. They just didn't know. Right. They didn't know how involved my gut was, and so I became that.
I'm not so sure about that gut.
I became a walking lie detector. So, and then through my career, 21 years of my 40 years was dedicated to troubled youth.
Mm.
And so when I worked in corrections, my specialty was hostage negotiation. I could talk people down from crises.
Mm.
And as I got into gangs, that was me paying my life back because I was orphaned at 8 with 5 brothers and sisters. So I promised myself at 8 years old that if I ever saw a child in need, and so working the streets in gangs in Miami-Dade and Fort Lauderdale for 7 years.
Wow.
It was crazy. And then of course I'm the crazy one, like you like to go out and walking in blizzards. I go to an alternative school and I'm dealing with, kids that's got 1 foot in the criminal justice system, 1 in the expulsion system. We're trying to figure out how we can get them graduated. And I was there for 15 years, but in that process, they couldn't figure me out because I never took anything personally. And I think on the spiritual world, that's a first level of mastery, is to realize what happens around you is not yours.
Beautiful. Beautiful. That's really beautiful. Yeah. Well, there's so much empathy in what you just said in terms of something in you. Now my intuition is lighting up, or that's the way it works. My empathy is lighting up. So I start to tune into your neurology and I start to feel what it feels like in my world to be you. And so it's like this sensory, this really super hardwired ability to connect feels like it's really built into you. You have this. It
is. It's when you go through things in life as a young child and you can't even dream. You're just existing. You live so present in the moment because it can change in a bat of an eye.
Right. That's really true. You're really just being present with your experience. And there's no, you don't have a story to protect or an identity to fight for,
No ego. I couldn't afford an ego. What are you talking about? I couldn't afford one at that age. So the fact is but it took a tragic incident for me to get into law enforcement. My brother was killed by a drunk driver and his family helped him cover it up. So there was no justice for my brother's death. And so I wanted to become that individual that could help people, ordinary underdogs that needed to have the truth told and the true story written down. And so that's why I got into law enforcement. And then, of course, my childhood came back when I started dealing with gangs. So in that, how much technology do you use currently in your mindfulness and your meditation? Because it's evolving fast.
Yeah, I use a lot of technology. I mean, here we are using an incredibly technical streaming platform. I mean, It is complicated what we're doing right this very second. And the fact that it seems simple is just a testament to how mature it is. But it's exceptionally complicated. And so I use this kind of stuff plus, other online services and social media, a high-end microphone, here and all this stuff. So there's a lot of tech involved in getting the word out. And just, don't take for granted things like just the ability to open up a page and start typing. Oh, I'm going to write a paper. Well, that you didn't used to be able to do that, So
I'm of the generation that I remember DOS, and I remember boards where you could type in, and that was still a step up above all the rest.
Used to be, word processors were invented in my lifetime. And so it's like I came from typewriters to, Wikipedia and Google. So I've seen the full arc of capabilities. Fax machines didn't exist when I was a kid. There was no ability to get bits across the street except to carry them over there. And so things have
carry
really
the book in your book bag and make sure you don't drop it in a puddle as you're trying to get home.
Right, exactly. So, and I'm not trying to say those days were fabulous or great or I'm the opposite of anti-tech. I'm very pro-tech. I'm actually pretty farther ahead of the curve than a lot of people I know. Like I'm thinking about AI and learning systems and quantum computing and that kind of stuff. And I'm not like an expert on those things, but I keep up with them.
Right. Where do you think where we're going to in the future?
Well, that's something I talk about to people around me regularly because we're not ready for it. We're 100% not ready for what's coming. There's going to be a huge intersection of neuromechanics, artificial intelligence, and quantum computing. And when all those things sound like it's sci-fi, but it's not.
No.
This is real world. In fact, there was a guy from Google who was just laid off this week or last week because he was convinced, and he worked in the AI there, that they have a sentient AI. He's convinced that it's sentient. Now, I'm not here to argue that, but I am here to say that that's how far along things are getting, is that this guy can't tell the difference between a really aware machine and a human being. So those things are coming at us really fast. And what's it going to mean whenever you see actors, artists, politicians, architects, therapists who are digital, and you have a relationship with them?
That's mind-blowing. Being a baby boomer and myself, and in all of these years, I was grateful that there was no beepers growing up, and there was no cell phones with cameras on every corner, on every other house or every other house. I would have been in deep trouble. I would have been in deep trouble. So I'm grateful for those. But now I'm also grateful for the ability to communicate long distances, to be able to have this podcast.
Yeah,
you're across the country from me. I'm in Tennessee, so
I know. We would never meet. This conversation would never happen. And and how do you get around without Google Maps these days? It's kind of like, it's crazy. People don't know how to use a real map. And I'm not saying that they're bad or anything. It's just like it's required. You have to have that to function in the world these days. So it's like,
do they even still sell maps? Because I think people have become so reliant on the internet. My one question is if the grid, if the system ever goes down, because are we prepared? Is our infrastructure prepared on this planet for what their next steps are? Because I know the roads aren't.
Well, right. The roads are one thing, but what happens whenever, we're kind of getting into, Mad Max material here, but like if there's if there's what they call like a EMP, electromagnetic pulse
surge
event, which could be solar or it could be, terrorist or whatever, and the computers are just completely blown and they're not coming back because all the chips are completely fried, then what next? Well, the first thing that happens, the cars all stop working. You can't go anywhere because they all use computer chips. So there's a whole big stream of things that just begin to fail. And we're not ready for that if that were to happen.
Yeah. I understand that, but like I said, I being a baby boomer, I've seen it all. I was real young. I was born in 59. So I'm one of the last year of the baby boomers. However, in that, I saw a lot of things these kids never saw.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have rewind. We didn't have censorship. It was real, raw, and rare, and you saw it as it was happening.
Yep.
And it was crazy. So the kids nowadays, I had a kid at the school I was at say, "Oh, I got 60,000 likes on TikTok. I'm quitting school because I'm famous." And I said,
Right,
"Oh."
I'm an influencer now, right?
And I said to him, I said, "That's awesome. But how much money did it get you? Because if you quit school, your parents are going to kick you out and you're going to need somewhere to live."
And a lot of really poor influencers. Yeah, right.
So, in that, in technology, it has its good points and its bad points. But like for me, I'm grateful my husband is self-taught as far as technology. And so I didn't know that when I married him 40 years ago, but I'm grateful that he is that now because he makes my stuff idiot proof. And I am transparent. I don't know technology. So when you said you're technology, I'm like, yes, there's more of them than just him.
Yeah, there certainly are. I guarantee that. I used to have a t-shirt, "Don't ask me to fix your printer," right? Kind of thing. It's like this. Everywhere I'd go, somebody, "Can you do this?" Because I was I was into computer repair and all this.
And though my husband told me, he says, the worst phrase that ever comes out of your mouth is, "Honey, I need you." And knows it's technology related. So, it's like, okay, I've kind of outwore that over the years because of it. So, but instead of talking technology, let's talk about the language of mindfulness.
Okay.
Because I love that. I love mindfulness. I support it. I've been using it with troubled youth just to help them to slow down that inner chatter, to bring it back into the center.
Absolutely. So crucial. And it's a skill we don't teach, but it's absolutely necessary now more so than ever. I think one of the downsides of media that we've been talking about has been the shortening of attention span.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many things you watch, like I'll watch a show on a movie or something, and you can see the cut scenes. I like to watch movies a little bit, critically, almost like I'm a director, like cut here, cut here, cut here. And I'll watch a chase scene, and the chase scenes might have frames that are like a second, maybe a second and a half, a minute of that, just like boom, 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 picture. Well, it's not that much difference than scrolling through, scroll. It's like I only pay attention to what's happening right this second, and I don't pay attention for more than a couple of seconds. When you do that 10 million times a year, because that's the way it works. Your brain is watching all this stuff. Your brain develops this chemistry that like rapid fire chemistry. And the chemistry that it needs to stay focused, it gets underdeveloped.
Mm-hmm.
And so it becomes really hard then for someone to say, well, I'm not going to focus on this one topic for 5 minutes or 2 minutes or 1 minute. This comes up very strongly when you start to practice mindfulness, because the first thing that happens very frequently is people start to pay attention to what's going on inside them. And it's what they call monkey mind, right? The Buddhists call it monkey mind. And you just, one thing after another, just hopping around. And you start to notice, man, I am just all over the place and I can't stay focused. And this is terrible. I don't like this experience. And so you just stop because you don't want to come face to face with your actual inner world. And the good news is it's like riding a bicycle. When you get on the bicycle, you're going to fall off. You're going to get hurt a little bit, hopefully not too bad. And you get back up and then you keep doing it. And after a few days, now you're actually cruising around town. And you've gone from painful, awkward, I hate this sucks, to, oh my God, I can explore the world.
Yeah.
And mindfulness is like that. It's like, it starts from like I don't like the way this feels. This is awkward. It feels icky to be in, to really kind of get up close and personal with my true inner world. But then if you just keep noticing and not blaming yourself, not going, oh, I suck at this, but instead going, yep, that's the truth of my world. This is who I am. This is what's happening now. Coming back to your breathing, paying attention to your experience in the moment, noticing how annoyed you are, noticing the way it feels, and just coming back and saying yes to, yes, this is what's true for me. I'd like for it to be different. That's also true for me. I'm just going to keep paying attention to what is happening now.
Mm-hmm.
And you develop over time a little bit more capacity to do that. Then the chatter becomes something you just recognize it. Oh, that's just the chatter. The part of you that does that recognition is the executive brain function of our neurology. It's like a little tiny piece of our brain. It starts to get more capable. And soon you start to have more moments that are really rich and really more expansive. You know, like when you're riding the bike or you're on a plane and you look around, you start to feel the lay of the land.
Mm-hmm.
You can have a lot more of that in your life. And that's a good thing.
I absolutely agree. But the one thing about mindfulness that I found to be so beneficial for people is it made them slow down.
Mm-hmm.
It made them become present, and it made them reflect on them.
Yeah, those are characteristics of being in a mindful state, is that you are able to see what's going on in you. So that's the very definition, in a way, of a mindful experience. I'm talking to somebody and they say something and it irritates me. Instead of just being defensive, reactive, angry, attacking, I can just notice that that's what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Now I have a choice. That's the very definition of freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Having a choice, right? Suddenly I have more freedom. I get to choose to be reactive or not. Before, there was no choice. And so one of the things I say is that mindfulness is about creating freedom, real freedom, not like freedom from the government or some other idea about it, but really true inner freedom, the freedom to be present, the freedom to be more whole, to be more of who you are, and then to speak from that place.
Ooh, now you're talking my heart language, because I work with people to harmonize their mind and their heart. Yeah. And so in doing so, you do get that inner peace you always wish you had. You find that part that you were like, man, I just want to be happy. Well, most people don't realize the happiness comes from within. It's all about you. It's your mindset. It's your self-care. It's your boundaries. It's your mindfulness that you show to yourself. And of course, we're our first and foremost, we're our own worst enemies, and we'll do more harm to ourselves mentally than anybody ever could do to us.
Well, we tend to internalize our woundedness. You know, we tend to make stories about them, and then we act out that story in order to have a coherent worldview. And I've done a lot of research and work with psychotherapy, somatic psychotherapists, and I keep up with the latest research in neurology and neuropsychology. And the way this works out, it seems like, is that people, by the time they're like, young adults, you develop this idea of who you are. Well, I'm a this and I'm a that. So, I'm a technologist and I'm an extrovert and I'm a this and this. So, and therefore the world looks this way to me. And if somebody comes back to you and says, well, Brett, you seem like you're actually not a technologist, but you're actually more of a car mechanic. And I'm going, well, I don't want to hear that, because that doesn't align with my world, right? Going, well, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know me. I know me. What do you know about me? It's like, But people will work very, very hard to make their experience map their beliefs about themselves. And in fact, I can't overstate this enough. It's incredible the amount of distortion that people will inject into their experience in order to make it align with your expectations.
Or just make excuses for their bad behavior.
Well, right. They don't necessarily even see it as bad behavior, right?
Oh, no, it's not. But when you start treating people bad, you just threw the golden rule out the window.
Yeah.
And so the fact is simplicity means I see you as a human being and you see me as a human being. Guess what? We've just gone past most people's understanding of humanity.
Well, right. And because most people aren't interested in, well, I wouldn't say that. I would say a lot of people just haven't gotten to a place where they can lay themselves down enough to really see another person.
Or vulnerable enough.
Yeah. You have to get clear enough with, in order for you to see someone else really clearly, you have to be able to see yourself clearly.
So in the language of mindfulness, I know how important the language is in talking with somebody and their triggers and how it has them. It's just like listening to respond versus listening to hear.
Versus listening for rapport. So I'm not listening to do anything. I'm just listening to be in relationship with you so that I feel who you are in a deep way. And then I wire that knowledge up to my voice and I speak from that place. And suddenly we're talking the language of mindfulness.
I think we've been talking the language of mindfulness since we started, in the fact that no matter who you are, no matter what you do, everybody has this ability in them. They just have to want to be exposed to it.
So I have a question. This just comes up in my curiosity. It's like, why didn't you become a nurse?
Well, in my world, it wasn't that I needed to be a nurse, but I became a clinical hypnotherapist because I love puzzles. And when I was in law enforcement, again, I was a hostage negotiator on the SWAT team because I could talk people down from crises.
And so help me understand a little bit about your now I'm interviewing you because this is just the way my curiosity goes off.
That's fine.
What goes on for you when you're in a hostage situation that allows you to be successful where someone else might not?
Well, the thing is understanding the human psyche. And most people don't realize that. It's the behaviors. It is the language that they use, the desperate tones in their voices. So you're hearing all these pieces of the puzzle. And so what you're doing is trying to find out why.
The why.
The why. Why are you doing this? Why is this so important for you? What puts you in?
What's the payoff for them?
Yeah. What made you so desperate that you're willing to get more charges? And so then when in doing that, it was like, I felt comfortable because when I was a kid, I was labeled as a kid in the 60s when my parents abandoned us in an orphanage, all 6 of us, and we were separated. All of a sudden we were individuals on our own, dealing with our own horrors. And I kind of went introverted and I was very angry, but I learned not to speak because I didn't want to show my hand, as they kind of say. So in my life, I've had 3 near-death experiences. And when you have faced your creator, you've cussed him out like a sailor, and you keep telling him you don't have 9 lives. And he keeps saying you have a purpose. And it's like, you better show me because I haven't figured it out, you know? And that's when different experiences happen. And fortunately for me, my father's Native American. So I lost all acceptance of organized religion because the Catholic Church told my mother she couldn't raise 6 kids on her own, and they would help us. And that's how they helped us. And she willingly relinquished us to this orphanage.
Yikes.
Drove away. So the fact is I relied on my spirit guides. I relied on my imaginary friends. In fact, in I'm a part of a compilation book, and it's an international bestseller, and it's called Business Life in the Universe. And I honored the spirit guide that I got at the age of 8.
Yeah.
His name was Geronimo.
Yeah.
And he made me bulletproof in my life because I did many things that were extreme, and he helped guide me when I had no guidance. And in that, I promised myself I was never going to abandon my children like I was. I was never going to do the, you don't leave children to their own devices. And in an orphanage, they don't care about anybody. So a lot of traumatic stuff happened. And then when I ran away, I lived on the streets. It was in Colorado Springs.
Yeah, I'm familiar with Colorado Springs.
And so the thing is, it was it was off of Nevada Avenue, just past Circle on the left if you're going southbound. And the bottom line is that he was my main spirit guide that showed me what to do and how to do it. And then when my brother was killed by a drunk driver, I was 20.
Oh, jeez.
And I was married. I had a child, and she was less than a year old, and I was still breastfeeding her. And in my mind, I was going through the acts I was going to do to avenge my brother's death. Literally, I was manifesting how I was going to do this and what I was doing. And each step of the way, I planning it out. And then all of a sudden, my daughter started crying. So I picked her up and I started breastfeeding her. And that's when this voice came to me and said, if you do what you're thinking about doing, you're going to abandon that child like you have. And it was an epiphany. I mean, it was earth shaking, shattering. And it was like, I can't do that. I made a vow to myself.
Right, exactly.
And so that's when I was like, okay, how can I help people? How can I help other people? And that's when I got into law enforcement.
Oh, wow.
So that, in that, it was those Bible marks that help make me, I'm one of 11 children now.
Oh, man.
And so there were 6 of us at the orphanage. My mom had another one. My dad had 4 more. So they kept those kids with them. And then as time went by, I was grateful that they relinquished us. Because I kept thinking about, would I be like them? Would I be alcoholics? Would I be, manically depressed because of being in that environment? Even though mine was tough enough, how would I be? So I was grateful that the experiences I had made me who I became.
Well, I'm glad that I mean, that's a heartbreaking story, but I'm happy that there's enough of who you are that was incarnated into your body to survive, and not only survive, but be forged in a soul forge that would destroy many, many others.
So the thing with kids for me is to show that you can come from so far behind the tracks. It's a choice. So I was smiling when you said it's a choice, because in our lives, no matter what we do, we have a choice. We have a choice to either take the easy road, and that's going to lead to all kinds of trouble and probably arrest and incarcerations and thinking the world owes us something, compared to how am I going to help others
Be
who
of
are
service.
walking a path that's close to mine, had no support, no guidance.
Well, that's so much the message of what you might say, or what I would say is like the mystic path. It's like people who have woken up, and I don't mean woke like politically woke, but I mean spiritually awake.
Right.
When you connect truly in your bones, not in an intellectual way, to the higher part of you, you wake up. And when you do, the very next thing that occurs to you is, how can I be of service? And so that's one of the I would say tests that I have for true spiritual people, is that first and foremost in their life, the thing that they're about is service.
And I've been of service in law enforcement for 40 years,
Yep.
but I didn't have a voice. I didn't have a voice in the orphanage. I didn't have a voice growing up. I didn't have a voice as a young adult. And then I got into law enforcement. I couldn't have a voice. I had to keep everything to myself. So when I retired last year, 50 days, I had a podcast, and I wanted to showcase people, ordinary people doing amazing things, because there's millions of them.
Yep.
Their voices are not being heard.
That's true. I agree. We're very aligned with that. I have the same thing. I'm going to be launching a podcast shortly called "The Future Is Mindful" with my colleague Mark Mollbaum. And one of the reasons for that is, like, in the work that I do, I encounter lots of people doing amazing work. And I was so inspired by this guy who was not running, but working for a company that runs like several elementary schools for troubled kids, for challenged kids. And he said that the teachers were just completely burned out. And so he started he doesn't know what he's doing. He's like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I needed to do something. So he started a mindfulness program for them, and it helped them so much. And so he's like contacting me, where can I learn more? How can I get hooked up with other people? And I'm like, so inspired. I'm like, we have to get these kinds of voices out there more, so that people know not only that can be done, but that it matters. And it really, really makes a difference. And so that's part of my message to the world and to my clients, is that when you take responsibility for landing in what I call your embodied authority, being who you really are, and speaking and acting from that place, it matters. It matters to you. It matters to the world around you. It matters to the world. And things begin to change. The world responds differently to you.
I love that you say that, because it is what I do in my world affects everybody else on this planet. And I can either raise a vibration, or I can be part of the problem and tearing it down. Last year, I had an epiphany. I went on a spiritual retreat out to Mount Shasta, and it was amazing. And I met up with all these other spiritual people, and we were on this retreat. And we went to a place called Weeds, California, went to Pluto's Cave. And Pluto's Cave is a lava tube that ran off of Shasta in the day when it was erupting. And so I had tennis shoes on, I had a cell phone and a walking stick. I didn't have a flashlight. I'm like, okay, here I am. Yeah, no, I don't need no flashlight. I got a cell phone.
I'm a light. I am a light.
So I go tripping into this place, and my flashlight on my cell phone wouldn't work. And so I had to turn the photos on, and I'm trying to see depth perception through my cell phone, but in the pitch black, there's no depth perception.
Yeah, in a tube like that, right.
And so the thing is so I almost broke my foot a couple of times, but I was on this trek, and I'm just like, I'm this not extremist, but I'm like, I'm okay. I keep being called back to the next cave, to the next cave, to the next cave. And out of the 4 caves, I went to 3 of them. And I was standing there, and I was telling this guy, I said, what? I'm being told that I've gone far enough. I'm going to head out. So as I'm heading out, I just felt the need to take pictures. And I didn't realize, because I can't see the pictures, because, the flashes
are dark, right?
It's pitch black. So I just figured, let me just take pictures. So as I was walking out of cave 3, a lady had split off from us. And all of a sudden she said to me, she goes, Chris, I can see your tribe following you. And I said, I can feel them too. I love it. I said, that inner child of me that went through so much has been healed in this cave. And so I walked from cave 3 and I was headed for cave 2, and there's a natural opening. And all of a sudden this white owl comes flying towards me, flies out above my head. How is it going out of the cave? Nice. And I'm like, okay, okay.
What else do you want to know?
It's like, okay, universe, whatever you want to show me, I'm accepting,
Beautiful.
So I get through into cave 2, and I'm going to cave 1, and I start taking pictures, and I didn't see any of these pictures. And when I got out, I was talking to a gentleman, and he's a doctor, and he's an amazing individual. And I said, can I show you these pictures that I took? And he started looking at them, and he goes, oh my God, Chris, did you see this? Did you see that the rock's in focus and you've got all these orbs around you? And I said, no, but I felt it. And he says, do you see the vortex on the side of the wall? And I said, no, I didn't see any of this with my naked eye. It was too dark. There's a vortex that's up in the top left. And then in the next picture I took, it's down on the ground, and it's the path that I took out of the cave. So
Nice.
I'm now on the journey of Mother Earth's chakras and vortices.
Well, that's fun.
And my whole thing is because I am Native American and I am white, but I practice Native American spirituality. I harmonized Shasta in September. And in March, we went to Maui because Maui is half the heartbeat of the earth. The frequency, which I'm all about frequencies, is 32 megahertz. And that's the same frequency your heart frequency's at. And that's the same frequency the earth vibrates at. So I go drumming and I do ceremony to harmonize humanity, to see the love and light in each and every one of us. And so I'm going to Sedona in September, and December I'm going to Peru because Lake Titicaca is the second chakra on the planet. So this is a journey I've been on, but since I've retired, I've got the podcast, I'm now doing this journey, and it's just like, okay, universe, just keep showing me what you want me to do.
Beautiful.
So like I said, but what kind of meditations do you do? Because I do something totally different, and I'm kind of interested how you think about it.
Well, I have, I'm kind of eccentric in that regard because, I'm an old guy and I've learned a lot of different techniques. And so what I do in my own meditations aren't really the kinds of things I would have other people do right away. It's like there's steps and stages along the way. And since we're in this world, there's certain initiations that happen along the way. And whenever those doors open, you can work with energy in ways that you couldn't otherwise. And I really try to stay out of it. Like I'm not. So my work these days is really just about surrendering into a embodied somatic experience and not trying to make any meaning whatsoever about anything. So it's like, I'll tell you a story that's been informative for me for many years. I had a guru back in the day, and he had this, and he used to tell this story. And a student would come to the guru and say, "Oh, master, I have been meditating for many hours and months, and I had this big experience. I sat down, and these beings came, and they put these robes on me, and they put a crown on me, and the birds came, and the light was flowing. It was so amazing." And he just patted him on the head, and he said, "That's great. God must love you very much. Now go be in peace. Go move towards peace." That was his command or his directive. Move towards peace. And then another student came up and says, "Oh, master, I've been meditating all this time and nothing happens like that. I don't have any of these big dramas, and I don't see anything inside." And he patted him on the head and said, "God bless you. God must love you very much. Now just go and be in peace." And so his point was, don't make drama out of stuff. Go and just be in peace. And don't say, "Well, that happened and it must mean this in the 47th dimension of the 32nd cycle of the frequency." There's nothing, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but it's a mental trap that people get sucked into. And my practice is just whatever happens, it's just what happens. I don't have to make a story out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that opens doors for me to have experiences that I can't otherwise have. And those experiences are fairly moving.
Epic. The reason why I'm asking is because I think a lot of people, and I recommend they start out with guided meditations because they're not sure where they're at and what they're doing. And then I tell them, once you traverse through that and you feel comfortable, let's do a meditation music and just a frequency. And once you get past that, let's go to the silence. And so in breath work, it is going to the silence. And
right.
Sitting in that silence and feeling that you're okay with who you are and that you're okay, because I see it as the best relationships we have with others are the kind of relationships we have with ourselves first.
Sure, that's right. Yeah. And so when people are beginning, it is good to have some structure around things. Like I said, the kind of meditation I do isn't necessarily what I would start with. Mm-hmm. And so having a formalized meditation, and I did a whole bunch of Kriya meditation, energy work, chakras, wheels, diamonds. I mean, we were all up and down the upper chakras, lower chakras. I mean, the whole thing, was crazy. And that's still with me, but I don't actively work that field as much as I just kind of be present with what happens and wait until a state emerges with me. I don't create it. I just make the conditions within me possible for things to arise as best as I can. And whenever that happens, then suddenly I'm in this pretty amazing space, just being in an amazing space. And so what I was going to say is that when you first turn to do this work, you begin to notice, like I said before, I've got all this chatter and stuff. There's all these judgments. I'm terrible at this one. And you have to make friends with that in a certain way and go, yeah, that's just the way my brain works. This is just who I am. And not wish it was different, but because that's what I want to say is acceptance is not the same thing as approval.
Correct.
Right. So it's like, I just accept the truth of it, and then it can change.
Yes. I call it owning your junk. When you own your junk and the things that you did and the things that went on around you and how you responded to this or you responded to that, that's owning your junk. And
all of it. You're going into the garage and going, oh, look, here's that stuff from 20 years ago and 5 years ago. Oh my God, it's still here. That's just a part of, and metaphorically, it's like, yeah, I used to be more of a jerk and I hurt some people and people hurt me. And I've had great victories and I've had some really crappy losses. I've had a lot of people mistreat me in my life. I was bullied. I was, a lot of weird stuff happened. We all have it. Mm-hmm. Take this whole big experience, and that's the world of breath, right? That's who I am. It's a part of who I am. It's not who I am in my core, but it's a part of my field of experience. And just letting that be so, that this is just simply who I am. Good parts, bad parts. Mm-hmm. All of it. And when I really just sit in the center of that and let that be true, something opens inside that lets you be at peace with that. And then something even more powerful emerges because you've really elevated your vibe. You've really opened a door into being through which the kinds of things you're talking about, the connections to the ancestors and to your lineage can all get activated. But even that can be a little bit of a trap. You don't want to hang your shingle on that. Just let that be part of your world, just like your history, right?
The thing is there's I have found there's really no way. It's what suits you. And as you go through, you did something as Hakomi.
Hakomi, H-A-K-O-M.
Because this is there's so many different, I remember transcendental meditation back in the 70s.
Transcendental. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, transcendental. Thank you. And the thing is it was like, that was woo-woo way back in then. And there was all these psychologists and sociologists. Nobody wanted to admit that, they had a possibility of changing the mindset, which I think was one of the steps. And so now look at how far we've come and look at the people that laid down the path before us.
Right. Yeah. It's come a long, long way. And from, TM and some other things back in the day, there were used to do these things they called T groups, encounter groups and stuff like that set the stage for a lot of modern psychotherapy. They were a lot of people got hurt, but a lot of people got transformed through that because we didn't know much about what we were doing. but things moved and evolved over time, and now things are a lot more refined. So we have things that are very broadly accepted, like training in mindfulness, training in emotional intelligence, notions of empathy as being the new executive skills that need to be taught are gaining a ton of traction. You're seeing all kinds of not just lip service, but actual investment in refining and reframing organizations to become more whole for the people who work there. As Tammy Simon said in an interview that she did on our conference, The Future is Mindful, she said, workplaces can be a crucible for personal change. It's like, wow, what a vision.
But here's the thing is, and I think COVID has brought a new whole dynamic to the way the world works as far as work jobs.
Oh, yeah.
Where they were forcing everybody to drive to come to a place. And then it turned out, oh, geez, we can do it from home and you can still show us accountability here. And we can still do our jobs.
Do our jobs well. You know, you lose some things because I'm of the school that there are things that you could get from being in the physical presence of people that you can only get by being in the physical presence of people. There are things you can get from working at home that you can only get from working at home. And I'm not here to say that one is superior to the other, but let's just be real about what the advantages are of one and the disadvantages, and the advantages are of the other and the disadvantages. And then ask the question, what needs to happen here? And I believe that for many people, the answer is we can work at home or away from work a lot and still be very, very effective.
And I agree with that, but it stretched people outside of their comfort zones. And all of a sudden it was like that imaginary box we've all put over our heads saying, you know, don't go outside of these boundaries, this box. And then when they said, think beyond the box, it's like, well, I never knew there was a box. Someone forgot to tell me.
Right, exactly. But your whole lifetime, you've spent a lifetime like getting outside your box because someone kicked you outside the box, right?
Exactly. But the thing was, but when they said that, it was like, oh, let's think of different things. Well, because of me thinking outside of the box that I never knew existed, we were able to have a graduation at the high school that I was working at because we used it at a stadium where they could do it. And the thing was, one of my best friends, I've known her since 1999. She was a principal and I told her about it. And I said, you know, just thinking out loud, why don't you do this at like your stadium on your football field? And this way the parents can have their sections and mark them off and you can put the kids on the football field. So if you have 300 kids, 400 kids graduating, they can still see it, but the graduates get to walk the track so that everybody gets to see them before they return to their seat. And so it doesn't take up the time. It just keeps the process going. So she did it. It was amazing. So that they did it a couple other places, but they were going to do drive-by graduations. And I thought, oh my God, what is up with that? You know, that's like taking the individuality out of it and not sharing and celebrating that individual that's worked so hard.
Yeah.
And so we did it here locally, and the other schools in the district where I was at, they incorporated that in their process, but it still gave the kids a way to be separated, but still get the graduation and the ceremony, which is a rite of passage. So the thing is it is about going beyond the blocks and barriers. And so what is Hakomi? Hakomi?
Hakomi, Hakomi.
Okay.
Hakomi is a form of somatic psychotherapy.
Okay.
And so it's a training that therapists and other people who work with people can go through to learn how to be really present with others in a way to facilitate their growth through a process of mindful inquiry that can very quickly connect people up to what Ron Kurtz, the founder, would say, the contents of their subconscious. So this might be subconscious wounding, or the way that we're acting out of our woundedness, and we're feeling the problems of how that's creating problems in our world, but we don't understand the mechanics of it.
Right.
And we need, and you want to heal it, you have to get in touch with how that works. And so to the degree that you need to do that, you can really facilitate people visiting their sort of original woundedness in a way that is elegant and graceful and supportive, and in a mode of discovery rather than confrontation. So you don't beat the doors down. You don't do a lot of talking, like, well, tell me about the time whenever, like your top therapist that you see on TV.
Yeah.
But instead, it's a lot more like, tell me how it feels when you hear the words, "You're safe here." That kind of thing.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I've been doing some research on it since before we started talking, and in that, there's a lot of kids that aren't safe and don't feel safe.
That's right. That's right.
So
you can. So in a Hakomi therapy session, you take that kid, and your job is to create rapport, so that they can begin to feel like that you're not going to judge them, you're going to accept them for who they are, and just let them be who they are in the moment and celebrate that.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that a lot. Brett, give my audience 3 tips how they can use mindfulness in their life today.
Learn to press pause on demand. Now, the best place to practice that, notice what lights you up. When do you step outside, you see beauty in the sky, and you go, wow, that's so beautiful. Press pause on that moment. Let it be just a little bigger in your senses. Expand, breathe it in. Don't make it into anything. Just let yourself be present with beauty or wonder or awe, wherever you find it. A child's face, a flower. You mentioned sound. I can tell you like sound. A sound, a tone, the way it resonates with you. Someone's voice, wherever you find it. And you notice what lights you up. Press pause. Now, this is one of my main teachings. Let that on purpose. Oh, that's beautiful. Wait, this is one of those moments. Press pause. Oh, yeah. Let it expand. Be with that for 15 seconds, 10 seconds. That's it. That's the practice. Do that 10 times a day. You'll add 10 beautiful moments to your day. Pretty soon, your brain will start to notice more of them, and you start to have a lot more beautiful moments. And what is life but a series of moments? So you, on purpose, add super simple, uncomplicated beauty to your life.
I love that. I love that. Okay, it's that moment. I take all my guests to just have them sit back, relax, close your eyes, take a deep breath in, and connect to your 5-year-old inner child. And what would they say about you and how far you've come in life?
He's like, what?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yes.
He's going, look at those toys.
But I think you surpassed all the boundaries and limits in your life. And I don't want to say you were extremist, but I think you were a naturalist, and nature is what motivated you. That simplicity of nature.
I've always found that, I would say, if I'd say the thing that kind of has gotten me beyond the edge is that I've always wanted to know what my limits were and how things actually work. So combining those two things together has led me on a lifelong pursuit of what is possible and how does it work.
And the one thing you don't understand is the word no. That doesn't apply to your life.
That's really true.
And the other thing is when someone says you can't do that, Brett, you go, okay, watch me.
Yeah, well, there's a good chance I already have.
And the reason why I say that is we're more connected than you know, because when I left South Florida and moved to Tennessee, it was my halfway back to out west. I didn't want to go back to, I wanted to go back to Wyoming. My husband couldn't handle the harsh coldness. And so Tennessee became our halfway back. However, in that, I said to him, I said, honey, I want to go to the academy. And he goes, you want to go where? And I said, I want to go, I'm going to the police academy here. I was 60 at the time. And he said, you're going to do what? And I said, yeah, I just got accepted. He goes, you did what? I mean, I did.
I'm not just going to go. I've already applied.
And I went through the 12 weeks. I was the oldest one there. And in that, I wasn't the fastest, but I wasn't looking to be the fastest. But I wasn't at the end of the pack. I was outrunning 19, 20, 21, 20, 30-year-olds.
How old were you?
I was 60.
6-0?
60.
Going into the police academy.
Yes.
Didn't they make a movie about that?
I don't even know. I don't even know. But the thing is unfortunately, here in Tennessee, they have what they call the bridge bill. And that is you have to get special permission to work the streets if you're 60 years or older. Well, I was 60 when I went to the academy. So It limited my ability. So last year in 2021, I finally just said, you know what? I was the deputy. I did my thing. I accomplished my goal of doing what I wanted to do. I'm good. I'm complete. I'm going to retire. And whatever comes up, comes up. And then that's when I created You've Championed Yourself. Who are you? And so just going through that evolution and in that. But yeah, I was 60 years old in
amazing
going through the police academy. So it's like
kudos. That's a lot of mojo right there.
well, the thing is the department I was working at was like, she ain't gonna make it.
Yeah, right, of course.
Oh, she isn't going to make it.
She's not going.
And every week I would call my captain. I'd say, "Hey, yeah, I just completed week 1. I just passed this post test. I just did this. I did that. I met the requirements for my physical training. I passed my EVO. You know, every week I was calling in, and they're like, "Holy crap! What is she doing? What is this woman made of?"
That's amazing.
And so it is. I, like you, the one thing as a child I learned is that I can do anything. But I choose to do what I want to do.
Yeah, beautiful.
Instead of saying, you know, I don't have that I can't. Like you don't have that I can't.
Yeah, this morning I finished my final exam on becoming a international federation coach, ACC Associate Coach Certification. I finished the final exam. Been a year and a half in getting there. So it's like, yeah, I'm still bringing it on. Now I have to say, it does not as how should I say, ambitious as joining the police academy, but
yeah, and I did, but the other thing is since then I became a clinical hypnotherapy. I am a lifelong learner, and I'm of service, and I will be of service till I die, and I want to help kids. So my journey to Mother Earth and their chakras, I'm hoping to turn that into a documentary so that we can teach the children so they can be exposed to this energy. And when you talk about quantum physics, which you talked about, I loved because I explain energy with quantum physics. And if I can send you energy and you can feel it instantaneously, and I said, here's your pill. And you don't know if it's a sugar pill or a regular pill, and you take that pill and you feel better. You are revitalized. You feel that energy come through you. That's the placebo effect. That's the definition of it.
Yeah.
So science does hide a lot of the woo-woo stuff in the energy and in the mindfulness and in the boundaries and the things that we can do if we just get out of our own heads and out of our.
That's the thing is I tell people frequently, the limits of what's possible is not bounded by your imagination. And that means that we're just in our ways most of the time.
Mhm.
includes me too, you know.
I get there too. I mean, I'm transparent. You know what? Let me just say that sometimes when you get these blocks, it's the universe saving you from doing something stupid.
Yeah, that can happen. Absolutely.
And so the thing is so when you feel like you're not doing your best, did the universe put you on pause so that you didn't get out and got crazy and got something crazier? So in all of this, it's just the thing that I love what you do as far as your mindfulness and the language of it, and that you spread the word. And I honor you for doing that,
Thank you
because
kindly.
there's not enough people spreading kindness in the world.
I totally agree with We're doing our best.
I get every day, every step, every breath.
Beautiful.
So thank you, Brett.
Blessings to you.
Hold on just a second. It takes a special kind of individual to dream their dreams, their thoughts and ideas, and turn it into the reality. Brett Hill, you've done just that. You stepped past all those fears. You stayed the course, and you had the courage to do the follow through to the end. I honor you, and I honor the work that you're doing to help humanity. Brett Hill, you've championed yourself. Now we know who you've become. Thank you for sharing your ideas, your thoughts, and your dreams, and your processes with me today and my audience.